Okay, here we go. Buckle up, Buttercup, because this ain't Build-A-Bear Workshop anymore. It all started with Bartholomew. Yeah, real original name, I know. I was like 8 when I got him. A floppy-eared rabbit, all pastel blue and suspiciously cheerful. Mom found him at a flea market. He looked lonely, she said, handing him to me with that sappy smile. Plus he was a steal. $2. $2 and a curse, more like. I wasn't thrilled. I was already a burgeoning comic book enthusiast, and the rabbit clashed with my Batman decor. But Mom was insistent. Barty, as I begrudgingly named him, ended up perched on my shelf anyway, staring blankly with those button eyes that followed you around the room. I swear, the damn thing knew I was making fun of him. The first weird thing was the giggling. Faint, almost like a child whispering in the next room. I'd hear it late at night, just before I drifted off. Probably just the plumbing, Mom would say, yawning and already halfway back to her own bed. Plumbing doesn't giggle, Mom. Plumbing gurgles. It does not find my suffering humorous. Then came the accidents. My prized Green Lantern comic, ripped to shreds. My action figures mysteriously missing limbs. A dollop of bright blue paint smeared across my favorite TMNT blanket that said, "Cowabunga Dude," when I was not even actively painting or using paint. I blamed the cat, naturally. Mittens, our ginger tabby, had a chaotic streak, but even she seemed unnerved around Barty. She'd hiss at it, fluff up her tail, and then make a wide detour around my room like she was avoiding a toxic waste spill. Cats always know. Always. Things escalated fast. One evening, I was playing video games, totally engrossed in leveling up my Space Marine, when bam, the controller flew out of my hands, hitting the wall with a satisfying thud. I whirled around, expecting to see Mittens batting at it. But no, just Barty, sitting smugly on the shelf, bathed in the flickering light of the screen. "Okay," I said slowly, keeping my voice even. "That's it, Bartholomew, you're going in the closet." I grabbed him, the soft fur suddenly feeling scratchy and wrong, and shoved him into the back of my closet, behind a pile of old winter coats. I slammed the door shut and locked it, feeling a little ridiculous, but also relieved. That night, the giggling was louder, closer. I buried my head under my pillow, but it didn't muffle the sound. It was followed by the shuffling of fabric and the creak of my closet door. I bolted upright, heart hammering against my ribs. The closet door was ajar, and standing in the doorway, silhouetted against the hall light, was Barty. He wasn't just standing, though. He was different. His stitched smile seemed wider, more predatory. His button eyes gleamed with an unnatural light, and his fur, once a delicate pastel, looked matted and stained. Maybe with blood? I didn't want to think about it. Did you just unlock the closet, Barty? I stammered, ridiculous, because I had a feeling who was behind this. He didn't answer, of course. He just hopped forward, a slow, deliberate hop that was way too unnerving for a stuffed rabbit. "Look," I said, my voice trembling. "I don't know what your deal is, but I don't want any trouble. Maybe you're looking for a hug? Is that it? You just need a friend?" I was improvising, desperately trying to appeal to the fuzzy monster's better nature. It was like negotiating with a sentient dust bunny. He just tilted his head, a slow, calculating movement. "Friend?" he squeaked in voice that was both cute and horrifying. It was like Alvin and the Chipmunks had a baby with the Terminator. It made my teeth hurt. "Yeah, a friend, Barty. We can watch movies, eat pizza, maybe even play a little video games." I stammered out, hoping that worked out. "Pizza," he squeaked back. I ran and grabbed the pizza that was still hot and held it out to Barty. He took a bite of the pizza and nodded. "Friend," he squeaked back. I spent the rest of my night in the living room, watching television and hiding under a blanket. I tried to tell Mom what happened, but she just patted my head and said I was having a nightmare. "He's a stuffed animal, honey. He can't hurt you." Famous last words, Mom. Famous last words. The next day, things were even worse. Barty followed me everywhere. To school, stuffed in my backpack, thank God. To the park, even to the bathroom. Privacy was officially a thing of the past. He'd sit there, staring at me, giggling softly. He'd also start suggesting things. Small things at first. Trip him, he'd whisper when I passed a classmate I didn't like. Spit in her lunch, he'd hiss when I saw my mom doing my sister's homework. With his words, I started becoming bad. My behavior in school went from okay to bad. It was always little things, but they escalated quickly. The breaking point came when Barty suggested I swap out the sugar in my dad's coffee with salt. I knew my dad was trying to cut back on his sugar intake and he would be not impressed. "No, Barty," I shouted, grabbing him and pinning him to the kitchen counter. "I'm not doing that. You're going too far." He just laughed, a high-pitched, manic giggle that sent shivers down my spine. "You will be my friend, or you'll be my food." My eyes widened. He was going to what? Before I could react, he lunged at me, those button eyes burning into my soul. I screamed, pushing him away with all my might. He went flying across the room, landing with a soft thud behind the refrigerator. I didn't wait to see what he did next. I ran. I ran out of the house, down the street, and straight to Mrs. Henderson's, the crazy cat lady who lived 3 houses down. She always gave me cookies, and I had a feeling she'd understand. "Mrs. Henderson," I gasped, bursting into her cluttered living room. "I need your help. My stuffed rabbit, he's alive, and he's evil." Mrs. Henderson, surrounded by a sea of furry felines, just blinked at me calmly. "Oh, Bartholomew, is it?" "Yes, dear. He's been causing quite a ruckus in my garden. Ate all my prize-winning petunias. The little thug." Okay, never mind. I knew I was on my own. That night, I barricaded my bedroom door with everything I could find. My desk, my dresser, even my own bed. But I knew it wouldn't be enough. And I was right. The giggling started again, soft at first, then growing louder, more insistent. Then came the scratching, the scraping, the splintering wood. Barty was breaking down the door. I grabbed my baseball bat, the one my grandpa gave me, and waited, my heart pounding in my chest. The door finally gave way with a crash, and there he was. Barty, standing in the doorway, his fur ripped and stained dark. I swung. I swung with all my might, hitting him square in the face. He went flying, landing with a sickening splat against the wall. But he wasn't dead. He slowly peeled himself off the wall, his button eyes filled with pure, unadulterated rage. "You shouldn't have done that," he squeaked, his voice now a guttural rasp. "Now you're going to get what you deserve." He charged. The fight was brutal. He was surprisingly strong for a stuffed animal, and his bite was surprisingly sharp. I screamed, I fought, I kicked. I swung the bat again and again, but nothing seemed to stop him. Finally, in a moment of desperation, I grabbed the one thing I knew he hated, Mittens, the cat. She hissed and struggled, but I held her tight, shoving her right in Barty's face. Mittens really saved my ass. And then, it happened. Barty screamed, a high-pitched, ear-splitting shriek that vibrated through my bones. He clawed at his face, his button eyes widening in terror. "The cat!" he shrieked. "The cat ruins everything!" He burst into flames, a small, pathetic fire that quickly consumed him. The room filled with the smell of burning fur and cheap polyester. And then, he was gone. I collapsed on the floor, exhausted and terrified, with Mittens purring and giving me headbutts. The burning smell made me gag. I haven't seen or heard from Barty since, but I still have nightmares about him. The giggling, those button eyes, that creepy stitched smile. And every time I see a stuffed animal, I can't help but feel a little uneasy, because you never know what kind of evil might be lurking beneath that soft, fuzzy exterior. And you never know when a steal at a flea market might end up costing you your sanity. I learned I'm better off sticking to my comic books. At least Batman can usually handle his own problems. And one more thing, I got rid of the cat. I'm kidding, mostly.